Hi everybody, and welcome to my next video in this series about my new game Battle for Antares, which I'm going to release on Steam in a couple of weeks when it's done. As you know, in this series I would like to walk you through all the technical details of this game, how everything works under the hood, all the design choices that I've made, how all the components work together. And in the last video I have already shown you parts of the artificial intelligence, so how does the computer know how to play against you in a somewhat efficient and challenging and interesting way. We have focused on the economy part, so how does the computer know which stuff to build on his planets. And in this video I would like to show you the tactical component, so how does the AI know where it needs to move his rally point, whether it should invade new planets or whether it should attack you, whether it should come back to defend his own planets, and whether it should prepare and stuff. So how that is handled. And probably you remember from last time this debug view, which you will never going to see you're never going to see that in the final game. But in this view, this allows me to get some insights into what the AI is thinking about its tactical or the tactical part. And essentially I have these kind of different desires, what the AI should do. And essentially I calculated the desire to colonize new planets. This is basically when the more uncolonized planets you have, the higher the desire to just invade those, just because usually there's no competition, and that means that you can continue to grow your empire and grow your fleet. If the available stars get too low, then more and more desire to invade the enemy is there. If your fleet is damaged, then the desire to repair your fleet will increase, and this aggressiveness is a general indicator for how much the AI believes to be in favor. So essentially based on fleet size, the AI estimates whether he's in a strong or in a weak position, and this is going to influence some more decisions. So here you see that the AI now has already 6 drones, whereas I do have no drones, because essentially while the whole game was running I was just talking. So that's why the AI believes that it is in a very strong position, and it's getting more and more aggressive, which will make this invade desire start to increase. And if I wait a bit longer, then eventually the AI will decide that it's now time to actually invade me, and it will move this rally point over to my star, and just tries to finish the game by invading my star. And usually when you are actually playing the game, then you're also growing your empire, so you're also building drones. That means that this aggressiveness will not increase so rapidly, and that means that the AI will not invade you so early. But right now, since essentially I have done nothing all the time, I have no drones to defend, and the AI is in a good position. It essentially has 14 or 15 fleet supply by now. There's no reason for it not to attack me, so the AI is moving all its drones down here. It's attacking me, and I will lose the game now, right? Okay, so that's what I wanted to show. Let's look under the hood how that works. Like probably you remember from last time, there's this AI class which does this repeating cycle here, which is executed every 3 seconds, where I evaluate the economy and execute the economy strategy. That's what I've discussed in the last video. Then the evaluation of the tactical strategy and execution of the tactical strategy, and then some more about win chance and stuff, whether the AI needs to forfeit. Okay, so let's look into the evaluate tactical strategy thingy. Again, somewhat complicated thing here, but essentially we again start with calculating. We again start with calculating these individual desires for whether we want to repair the fleet or whether we want to be invade or prioritize or colonize stuff, right? So essentially here the AI loops through all his drones and just calculates the current health versus the maximum health, which just calculates its own relative fleet health. And the more damaged the own fleet is, the higher the priority for repairing. That is pretty much straightforward. The aggressiveness, like I've said, is calculated by the relative fleet strength of the AI versus the player and fleet. So the more fleet supply the AI has, the more aggressive it will react. And here I essentially I multiply the AI fleet size by the priority to repair the fleet to make sure that when we need to repair the fleet, we are becoming less aggressive, meaning that we will more likely actually go repairing the fleet rather than just staying aggressive all the time, whereas all my ships are already fully damaged, right? Just to prevent these kind of things happening. So the next thing is I need to evaluate the priority to colonize new planets, and here essentially I just calculate. I loop through all the solar systems and I just calculate how many neutral stars I have, how many stars do I own, the AI owns, and how many stars does the player own. And then I just compare that. If I have enough, how many, depending on how many neutral stars I have compared to everything. So if like 80% of the galaxy is still neutral, then this is going to be quite high. And with more and more game time progressing, more and more stars will be colonized. So the amount of neutral stars will get lower. So this will get lower all the time. So the priority to colonize is essentially driven by how many neutral stars we still have in the game, and then there is some additional logic happening to take into account certain factors. For example, I compare my own empire size to the enemy empire size, and if I have much more stars than the enemy, then if the AI has more stars than the enemy, then the priority to invade or to colonize new stars gets down, just because if I have this economy advantage by having more planets, then I probably don't need more. I could focus more on attacking the enemy, and if it's the other way around, if I have less planets, then the AI is more likely to try and invade new planets to catch up rather than fighting against you or invading your planets. And also it's again taking into account the relative fleet sizes. So if the AI has a weak fleet, then it is more likely to colonize. And if it has a strong fleet, then it is less likely to colonize, but would rather focus on attacking you. Also, everything is again multiplied with the priority to repair the fleet, to make sure that if we want to repair the fleet, then we're also actually going to do that. Now, the last thing that we can do is to evaluate the invade priority, which is essentially just 1 minus the priority to colonize. So when the less likely we are, the less desire we have to colonize neutral stars, the more likely we are to invade the enemy, and then just some correction factors based on the fleet size and how aggressive we want to play. Just making sure that in the very beginning, when we have very little fleets, or when my fleet size is low, then I don't really want to invade the enemy. So at the beginning of the game, the fleet size is low, so I'm not going to invade. And if after an intense battle, my fleet is gone, then also, even though there are probably no neutral stars left, I would not want to start a new invasion just because my fleet size is so low. So that's pretty much the rationale here. And then this debug widget is set to make sure that I, as the developer, see all these priorities. That's what you've seen as well, how they've changed. So here I just set these colonize and repair and invade and aggressiveness values in the widget. So then the next step now to do is to actually execute the tactical strategy, which is, I mean, it looks very complicated, but it is actually quite straightforward. I just iterate over all the stars that I have, that I own, or actually I iterate over all the stars in the universe, and depending on whether I own them or the player owns them or they are neutral, I need to take different options into account. For example, if the player owns that star, then essentially I need to see whether I want to invade that star, right? So this is now mainly driven by the invasion priority, and then there are some things taking into account. For example, how close is that star to me? So essentially I calculate for each of the stars which I could potentially invade, how close are they to my existing empire, just to make sure, just to avoid that the AI is randomly spreading around, right? I just want the AI to grow in some clusters. So it would favor invading stars which are close by to other stars it already owns, and it also takes into account the distance between the two rally points, or his rally point and the star. So when it wants to invade something, it favors stars which it can reach quickly, where the rally point is close by, right? So these are essentially things which come into play. All of that is multiplied by the invasion priority. This is now the current score for this planet. If the planet would belong to the enemy, meaning that it belongs to the AI, always keep in mind that this artificial intelligence is handling from the player's perspective, it's handling the enemy. So if the planet belongs to the enemy, then we check whether the star is being invaded right now. So if the player invades that star, then we need to make a decision on whether we want to defend it. So I'm evaluating the strategic value of the star, where I just calculate how much resources do I generate in this star compared to all the other stars that I have owned, and probably the AI makes a decision to not defend stars just because they are of too little value for them. It just calculates how much resources do I generate in this star, and what is my fleet size, and then it decides whether it wants to defend the star. So in this case, the score for the star is defined by the strategic value of the star, and also again the distance of the rally points to make. If you are invading a star which is on the opposite of the universe, then it's less likely that you can defend it. So these kind of things come into play here. If the star is owned by the enemy empire and it is not being invaded right now, then essentially I could repair here. So I could move my fleet here and repair it. So again, it's the only thing which really counts is the distance of the rally point to that star and the repair priority. So do I want to repair at all? And this defines the score for this star. If the star is neutral, then probably that's the most complicated logic here. If the star is neutral, then I need to decide whether I want to invade this particular star. So I'm calculating the distance to my own empire, and of course I want that to be close. I want to invade stars which are close to my empire. I have the same thing going on down here. I want to avoid stars which are nearby to the enemy, to the game player. So just to make sure that I want to avoid these. But this is adapted by the aggressiveness. So if remember, the aggressiveness is high when the enemy has the stronger fleet, when the AI has the stronger fleet, and if that's the case, then the AI will favor to invade planets close by to you, to essentially bridge the gap to your empire and make sure that reinforcements make it to you quicker. And if the AI fleet strength is low, so the aggressiveness is low, then the AI will favor to colonize planets far away from you to get some distance to you. So that's the rationale here. Then there comes into play some more things like the distance to current rally point, and also the distance to the enemy rally point, and all of that is calculated combined together, then multiplied by the priority to colonize, and then makes up the score for the star in this case. So like I said, I just iterate over all the potential stars, and I try to define this current score based on whether the star is owned by the player, by the AI, or whether it's neutral. And now I just try to find the best star to colonize based on these ratings here. And then essentially, when I have found that star, the AI is moving his rally point to that particular star. That's pretty much it, right? So I have this, I calculate the tactical strategy, whether I want to colonize, whether I want to repair, whether I want to invade, and how aggressive I want to be. And then, given these priorities for all of the stars in the universe or in the galaxy, and depending on whether they are neutral or owned by the AI, I calculate the respective scores. And then for the star with the highest score, I just move there. I'll just move the rally point there, which would then make me either invade that star or fight against you. So or have the fleet repaired. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. What is left to do, but probably I'm going to cover that in the next video, is to evaluate the wind chance and drone production, and also choose the technology and stuff. So that's probably going to be another video. I think that's enough for now. Thank you very much for listening. If there's anything unclear, if you have more questions, want to learn something else, then just shoot me a message, let me know. I'm sure I can focus a video on that as well. Until then, thank you very much for listening, and see you. Goodbye.